CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And today I'm joined by first time, second time, third time, fifth time on the CGA Tour podcast, Colton Davidson.
Probably handful of time, something in that range. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Hi. What's up, Calvin?
Yeah. Good to see you. Virtually,
Yeah.
granted. Good to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah. Doing good. Just living out here in LA. How's Oklahoma right now?
Cold. It'll be hot and then it'll be cold, like that stupid Katy Perry song. Hot, then you're cold.
You know, isn't she from Oklahoma? I feel like she was talking about the weather. I feel like she wasn't talking about how she's into people
she's from
or
California.
how dating is. Oh, okay.
Carrie Underwood's from Oklahoma.
That's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know the facts, so I'll just spit out one that I do know.
Who knows?
Hot
and cold song could have originated from wherever. But with that being said, we're here to talk about the lack of success for the Dallas Cowboys in the past 20 years. I would say we could talk about the lack of success overall, but this is one of the more storied franchises in the NFL. I grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan, watching bunch of games with my dad. Still would be, if they were playing right now, I'd be watching games with my dad too. My dad's a huge Cowboys fan. He and my youngest brother actually flew out to LA to see the Chargers home opener when the Cowboys played for the Dallas Cowboys' first win of the season, in the regular season at least. And pretty much they kept a streak going after that. They, of course, Dallas, just recap a little bit, lost to Tampa first for the season opener, and then the next time they lost was November 7th. So went on a month and a half winning streak. But now, of course, we're talking about a team that was favored, had a home game, lost in the Super Wild Card round, and what you would think has all the assets to make it work, right?
Right.
So with all that being said, I'm kind of teeing you up. What were your takeaways from the game?
Just it was a game that encapsulated what the Cowboys have been in my lifetime since I really haven't been a big sports fan until around 2010. And so since 2010, it's wildly optimistic expectations. And then usually they suck by the end of the year and everybody's off of them. But it was kind of that. It's just, that's the Cowboys experience this year. Is they started off hot, then they had an abysmal December. And then they kind of got things going again by the end. Dak started looking like Dak. And then me and my wife sat down and we watched the game Sunday. And I started paying attention at like the second half. And it was just, the coaching was atrocious. And then like that's one of the most, it's just insane that a team can be, a professional team can be that undisciplined. And then the coaching staff not even realize it, which we'll get. I'm sure we can go quarter by quarter and break down the game. I don't want to just spill everything right here. But it was just why the Cowboys suck was on full display for that game.
So when I'm thinking about the Dallas Cowboys, I think of a team that is led offensively. I don't think of a team that's led defensively, right? We're talking about, before your and my time necessarily as almost, granted, I think you're closer to 25 than I am, but almost 30-year-olds, right? We're talking about a team that has won 2 Super Bowls since I've been born, but neither of them can I remember. There are multiple retired quarterbacks in the NFL who have got a playoff win before the Cowboys do. I believe Tim Tebow has a win in the playoffs before the Dallas Cowboys' last playoff win. I think I'm wrong though. Actually, that's wrong. But it's just more wins because the Cowboys have a win in this past decade, I believe. So
did they won to get to the NFC Championship game against the Packers on that famous play, or was that just the first round on the?
I think they won to play. I think they won in like 2017 before they played the Rams, if I have that right.
Okay.
When the Rams run to the Super Bowl, but either way, this is the biggest brand, in sports. Like the most valued franchise in sports. It's hard for me to really come up with too much of a similarity or kind of like what's equal here. Why are the Cowboys not? not providing just like the best team overall. You know, I mean,
Right.
this is so I go back to 2016. It's when we had Dak Prescott unexpectedly start for the quarterbacks
Mhm.
when Tony Romo went down with an injury before the season. And Ezekiel, it also went off. And at the end of the day, it's a 13-3 team that lost in the divisional round against Green Bay by 3. You know, it's just a bizarre ordeal. Bizarre to be a Cowboys fan in, I don't know, in 2021. Have we learned? I don't know.
So I have a really weird history with the Dallas Cowboys. So in elementary school, my best friend, who I have no idea where he's at now, but that elementary best friend, his dad was a fanatic Dallas Cowboys and Oklahoma University Sooners fan, just fanatical, worshipped them and watched every game he possibly could. So once I kind of got a little bit older, I was like, well, I don't really like this kind of person. If that's what that's the person that kind of follows the Sooners and Dallas Cowboys, which was probably a lot of why I became a Oklahoma State fan to begin with.
Go
But
Pokes.
and now I know I made the right choice because I just choose pain and never winning anything important.
You
versus-
chose, hang on. You chose spelling though, because as hard as it was for you to go Oklahoma University, because we know that's not what it is, but it is spelled OU. So they got to figure that out. I mean, really, OU's got to figure that out. You're U of O, move on, kick it down the road, or you're Oklahoma University. Figure it out. But go ahead.
Yeah, but anyway, and so it's been kind of fun to poke. It's been fun to poke fun at the Dallas Cowboys for the last since I've been a conscious sports fan since, like I said, like 2010ish. And but like you said, once I kind of now I get a lot more enjoyment of watching and listening to and thinking about team construction and the salary cap stuff and the NBA and the NFL and how all that stuff goes into play. Like and the preparation part of the game. And I just like I've been listening a lot to like Ryan Russillo's podcast on The Ringer, and he's had on Trent Dilfer, who is a high level high school coach and Super Bowl winning quarterback. And it was really fun. It's really interesting to hear him come on. And you hear like you listen to the Sports Animal or you listen to just a dumb sports podcast, and it's like, well, they need to run the ball more. Well, any idiot can go and watch a football game and go, oh, they're passing too much or they're running too much. That there's not that, well, why are they trying to run or why can't they run? And Trent Dilfer comes on and goes, oh, because they're not doing X, Y, and Z. They're doing these different schemes, and the schematically they just can't. They're not able to overcome it with their person, or whatever the more smarter answer is. And so learning all of that stuff, and Trent Dilfer had a really great. I think it was Trent had a really great of like why Bill Belichick is the very best is because he prepared like from day one. A rookie shows up on his practice field. He is teaching core concepts of how to overcome the stunt blocks, how to overcome, the switches, how to do this, how to do that. And so it's ingrained in those players that they instantly know, okay, we need to make this switch. The player instantly knows what to do. And then nothing was more on display than, the Glenn or what was the defensive coordinator for Oklahoma State this year? Glenn Campbell? I just have the right.
I know. Well, Glenn Spencer was a former Oklahoma State defensive coordinator. Jim Knowles was the
Jim
most
Knowles.
recent.
I'm so sorry.
You're totally good. Totally good.
Jim Knowles, they make the adjustments and that team is so experienced that they could come out and do it. So then you go and you just watch the Dallas Cowboys and it's like this team has the most money in all of sports. They have probably one of the best home field advantages because everybody in Dallas and everybody in Texas loves the Dallas Cowboys. So they're going to have a ton of fans at every game. And they have one of the most top of the line stadiums of any sports team out there. And a team gets out there on the field and they don't know how to do very basic high school level stuff. Like just me as a fan, like just the full display of one thing. I think it was right before the infamous they converted the 4th down punt, and I think it's before that the punter for Dallas punts and hits the jumbotron, which it's like how is that guy not coached to know exactly where that jumbotron is because he's kicking in his own stadium?
Well, then he gets to redo the punt.
Well, that's true.
It's
So there's that, and then they get out there for the punt team. They convert an absolutely awesome fourth down conversion on a fake punt, which completely caught me off guard. And then they try to get really cute with a team that, I think at that point had like 5 or 6 really big penalties. They try to get cute and make the other team burn a timeout by leaving the punt team on the field, then they're not going to burn a timeout. So they try to rush a team out after the officials gave them an extra 10 seconds. They restarted the play clock at like 19 seconds. They restarted it and went back, gave them an extra 10 seconds. They still couldn't get the offense on the team. It took a delay a game. It's just like, what is going on with this team? And so, Calvin, if you're going to if you were, if let's just say Jerry Jones brings you in as like, Calvin, how do I fix the Cowboys team? So, like, what do you do? And I think I know the right answer, but let's just kind of go through what you thought of the game. And
So, two things. Dallas's last playoff win was in 2018, wild card round against the Seahawks by 2, 24-22. So I did just take a second to look that up in case you saw my eyes diverting here. But if you're asking me, I would not have paid Zeke as much money as he got paid. Right. I think that's what every single person and their brother would say, though. And the Dallas Cowboys were stuck in a very tough spot, to be honest, of, okay, do we pay Zeke? Do we not? When I look to the Cowboys, like, losses or basically how the season went, right? There are games where Cowboys play Minnesota. They are at Minnesota. Ezekiel Elliott has 50 rushing yards. Next game, they are Denver at home. You would figure an easier opponent. They lose by 14. Elliott has 51 rushing yards, right?
Well,
they beat Minnesota by 4. And Denver has, right, like, so Denver has good defense, but then the next game is Atlanta here, where Tony Pollard is the highest rushing yard, I think, at least for the Cowboys for sure. And he's 42 yards rushing. He's the leading rusher on the team, and the Cowboys scored 43 points in the game to Atlanta's 3. Now, Atlanta does not have a great defense, right? But it's just, I can go, and the next one is a loss at Kansas City by 10, where the Cowboys' leading rusher is 50 yards, right? It's just, this team is no longer built on Emmitt Smith or, really running backs, right? Which is fine. So when I go through the Giants game, the biggest thing that sticks out is, okay, Elliott, 31 rushing yards, highest rushing total for, any of the guys playing in the game, right? But then receiving yards, okay, it's Brandon Ayuk for the Niners, which had 66 yards receiving, but it's 89 yards for Dalton Schultz. Like, you would figure getting CeeDee Lamb the ball before the fourth quarter would be a good idea if he's your best pass catcher. So the other parts that I go through this game, at least, is that there's like the win probability percentage graph, which is funny to look at usually. And it's very funny to look at here because Dallas went from having at maximum at kickoff, Dallas has a 64% chance to win the game. And then once it hits the 1st and 10 at Dallas 25, where Dak throws an incompletion and the Niners are up 7-0. And I'm assuming the next play here is basically like Dallas. It's 1st and 10, but basically next play is like, Dallas gets the ball to San Francisco. It turns into San Francisco has win probability percentage of, 65%. And that's it. All the rest of the game, San Francisco is basically going to win it. There's a spot there in like, when it's 13-7 and it is, basically 4 minutes left in the second quarter where Dallas, was close. But we're basically talking about a game where Dallas had 6 less points and had 40 or 30 yards less. But other than that, the stats are almost identical. Same 1 turnover each, 21 first downs. Dallas has 20 first downs. All of the stats here, time possession is a little different, but it just seems like Dallas should have easily won this game with as much offensive firepower as they have, with the defense playing as good as they did too, and with Garoppolo throwing for more than 200 yards, or excuse me, not even 200 yards, and Dak throwing for over 200. So I have a couple ideas of what Dallas could do, of course, right? I think that's what everyone does at this point. But I don't know from this game where the Cowboys should go, because it's like, okay, the defense is pretty good, but we had 14 penalties. And I said but 14 penalties. That's where it comes down to. If
Right.
Dallas doesn't have 14 penalties, that's probably the difference in the game. I would hope, at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you just look and the way the NFL is played now, and the way football is played in the NFL, typically, if you look at the quarterback matchup, where Jimmy Garoppolo 16 to 25, 172 yards, 1 pick, versus Dak Prescott 28 of 43, 23 of 43, 254 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. It's like, oh well, the Dallas won, and that's just not the case, because Dak took 5 sacks versus they kept Jimmy Garoppolo pretty clean. I'd be curious to see like how many times he got hit and stuff, because it looked like every time they dropped back, he had someone in his face constantly. But yeah, I mean, that running, I think you could make a case that Zeke is not the same and hasn't been for almost 3 years since that rookie and sophomore season. And I kind of was wondering if it's, I mean, let me back up. The problem with Dallas is Jerry Jones. He gets in their way and messed up by taking Ezekiel at number 4 overall in 2016. So Calvin, just off the top of your head, do you know who they could have had after Ezekiel Elliott?
No, I don't.
Jalen,
I mean, Dak Prescott is one of them, because he was drafted in the same draft in the 4th round. But
so it went Jared. So here's the draft order in 2016: Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Joey Bosa, Ezekiel Elliott, and then right after Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Ramsey. Just kind of looking here. Is there any other names are like actually good? No, there's not any other names. I misthought my argument because I was like, oh, they could have had Joey Bosa, but no, he went number 3, not number 4. But it's just like, for a few years there, it looked like Jerry Jones was getting the idea because he was building a really, really powerful offensive line, and I just wonder if that offensive line is deteriorating, if it's just getting old, because it doesn't seem like Dallas is able to get the same push it was. It doesn't seem like Ezekiel Elliott can get the same running room that he could, and it doesn't seem like they could keep Dak with a clean pocket. What do you think about those things there?
I think Dallas has a tough problem ahead of itself here, because basically the way that the Seahawks won in 2014, 2015, someone's going to shoot me with this, but basically the year that the Broncos didn't kill them, the year that they won, not the year that they lost to the Patriots either. The first year they had Russell Wilson, right? So before they had to pay Russell Wilson, that's basically the way to win games in the NFL. Is either you have a quarterback who takes a hometown discount of a certain percentage so you can allocate the money other ways, Tom Brady for 20 years in New England, or 2, you have, and what we've seen the most common deal of how teams are getting to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl is you have Jared Goff on a rookie deal, you have Patrick Mahomes on a rookie deal, you have Russell Wilson on a rookie deal, you have Jimmy Garoppolo on an underpaid deal, granted with the Niners.
Right.
You have all these quarterbacks with the lower end deal, so you can allocate the money other places. When Dallas went 13-3 with Elliott and Prescott in the first year in 2016, with both those guys just breaking out, a lot of money was put towards their offensive line. A lot, if not, not all of it, granted, but a lot, right? To Tyron Smith, just the center, the left tackle, the right tackle, etc. And that has to keep a 4th round draft pick who did not show a ton of great information in college, and Dak Prescott, happy. He's got to keep him upright, got to keep him clean pocket. Maybe that was Dallas's year. You come in, you got Tony Romo, you got Elliott, you have Cooper, I believe, at that time.
They didn't have Cooper until the next season.
Okay.
After
Miles Austin, maybe?
Yes.
Or Tavon Austin. But you have guys, right? So when you have to convert the money from going towards the offensive line to the quarterback and the running back, then that means your offensive line's not going to be able to be paid as much, and resources will be allocated other places, maybe a little bit to the defense. But at the end of the day, you're not able to keep the pocket as clean because you're not. Basically, you either are drafting offensive linemen that are future Pro Bowlers, which is risky no matter what, or you are trying to pay everyone all the time. And what's been proven is that this is not MLB. There is a salary cap, and
it's a hard cap too.
And you can only pay guys so much for their position, basically, to allocate the resources other places. I don't think this Dallas Cowboys team was set up to win the Super Bowl, but before the Niners game, you could have convinced me otherwise. You could have definitely have convinced me that they were. They were set up to win the Super Bowl, just because it's hard for me to go, oh, you know what, this team, I mean, we're talking about the corner, Trayvon Diggs, led the league in interceptions. 11. I mean, that's more than some teams had.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then there's Micah Parsons, who's, I mean, got to be rookie of the year, at least on defense. Defensive player of the year maybe as well, too. I thought that may go to some other guy. There's just so many good things that were going for Dallas besides basically keeping the pocket clean, keeping Dak Prescott upright. And even then, I mean, okay, so the Niners, right? Niners get to go on and they get to go face Green Bay. Green Bay does not have as good as a rush defense as the Niners do. So if Dallas had won, I think they would have gone to go play. Maybe they would have played the Rams instead, but Dallas would have gone forward to play play the Packers, for example. I think they would have fared a little bit better offensively, but they also could have gotten lit up too. So I don't like how Dallas has constructed the team, but then again, they have had so much regular season success as of late, and the division has been so bad, honestly, as of late, that it seems as though time could be running out here in a year or two. I don't think it's running out tomorrow. I think Dallas has another couple of years, which we'll get to in a second, but I do think that there is a weird construction of this team for how the cap is spent, because to get back to your question, they're not able to keep Dak Prescott's, jersey clean at the end of the day. He's not running for first downs as much as he used to. Granted, he did have a first touchdown in the game that Dallas scored was a 7-yard touchdown run by Dak, but he's not going to be as mobile either way. He got injured. He had a season-ending injury that honestly could have ended everything for him. He's just not going to be running outside the pocket, and he's a really good pocket passer anyways. We don't need.
Yeah, he's not Lamar Jackson, who can't succeed inside the pocket. He has definitely proven, especially since that rookie year, that he can be the guy that can execute an offense from exclusively the pocket. He's proved that the last few years, and he was like, there was a conversation there in their hot streak, like, is he a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? And at the time you have to answer, well, yeah, probably. But I've always, one thing I've heard, and Dusty Dvorak was the first on Sports Animal was the first person who brought this. Is like, whenever you're constructing a team, the most money has to be going 1 to the quarterback, 2 defensive line, 3 offensive line. And I think you can probably interchange offense and defensive line, and then quarterback, like that's the most important position of all sports. It is like the offense, everything on the offense runs through it, and the quarterback can mask so many problems. Look at Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. That whole team is awful whenever he doesn't play this season. So it's just like, Dallas has got it all screwed up with. I think Zeke's got to be like the second highest paid player on the roster, isn't he?
He has to be. I mean,
like
6
second,
years,
third.
$90 million. Yeah, and he might be behind, wide receiver, or I forget, maybe Cooper.
Yeah,
although
I think Cooper has got a lot of money coming towards him, which is why the Raiders got rid of him in the first place. Because he's always battling a weird foot issue every year, and then Zeke has just not been himself. I think there was a leak that he was getting a surgery on his ribs or a shoulder or something after that game, where he was playing with some kind of weird strain or something. So
I could see that. I don't like how the Dallas has constructed the team, but again, come back to it. It's not on me. You did ask about Dallas, basically not protecting the pocket and what some stats are. San Francisco had 0. They gave up 0 sacks and there were 0 yards lost. Dallas gave up 5 sacks. Dak Prescott was sacked 5 times for negative 40 yards. The penalty deal, though, here when I'm looking at the stats, is kind of interesting because it came at bad times, of course. But we're talking about penalties. San Francisco had 9 penalties for 58 yards. Dallas had 14 penalties for 89 yards. So Yeah, I mean, it is
There's
kind of
the
like a
game.
third more, and it is kind of, I mean, it is kind of the difference is that if Dallas can keep Dak healthy, right, and keep him upright and not have him get sacked 5 times, then maybe that changes the whole game. But then again, Dallas is clearly asking Dak Prescott to do something completely different than they are asking for Jimmy Garoppolo to do, and that is the amount of passes thrown in the game. So Dallas is going to have more chances where Dak Prescott's going to get sacked when there are 44 attempts and San Francisco has 25 attempts, right? But Garoppolo and Prescott, not the same guys. You're not expecting the same thing out of either guy. I just want to get into where do you think this team goes offensively or defensively from here? Because basically, Mike McCarthy, not a great head coach. Like we've seen that. But then again, he's definitely a coach that's going to let Jerry Jones be around the team, right? Be whole hands on the team. So unless the team is sold or they actually want to hire a GM, I don't see either of those things happening. So unless either of those things happen, I don't see McCarthy leaving, next year. I think one of the Jones brothers or one of the family members of the Jones family who works for the team, granted, said, "Oh, McCarthy will be back next year, no question." Kellen Moore and the defensive coordinator as well, who, I mean, the Atlanta Falcons old head coach who lost 28-3, lead in the Super Bowl, Dan Quinn, they're both getting interviews with other teams. So clearly there's something that other teams see about those guys that we don't, because I would say we do see that, but then again, Dallas didn't win. So I'm not seeing it necessarily.
I mean, I think with Dallas, what we're going to probably see the next couple, like you talked about, that window is closing, and I think you're probably right. They might have 2 or 3 more seasons, but I've just kind of, as I've gotten older, and man, I'm going to sound like an old man. It's like the true greatness, the guys that really set themselves apart. They aren't. It's not necessarily like whenever you're in high school. Like they think about it, the best player on the team was usually like the fastest. It wasn't always like the smartest guy. It wasn't always the guy that knew exactly everything. It was always the guy that like was just physically so much better. And as I'm getting older in business and the flying that I do, the guys that are the best aren't just, physically or mentally the best. It's because they do all the little things on the margins, and that all leads to like the great success. And I just cannot, with Dallas, why they lost that game is because they weren't doing the little things, like, having the right play calls in place, Dak not knowing that he had to get the ball to the ref, the all those little bitty things throughout the whole game all added up to they lose by 6. So, I just don't see them in the next 3 years unless Jerry Jones sells the team, which he's not going to do unless he falls over dead in a couple days. But that's not going to be happening either. Which I don't want to happen. I don't want to make that clear. I don't want that to happen at all. Jerry Jones is actually kind of one of the more fun NFL owners because he's got that personality and he's instantly recognizable. He's one of the faces of the NFL. But anyway, where I was going with that is, the next 3 years, because that they don't do those little things on the margins that, teams like the Patriots, teams like the Chiefs are proving to be, that they don't beat themselves, like the old classic San Antonio Spurs, that they don't beat themselves. They do those little things that all add up and equal winning championships. I just don't see them being able to do that. And they've got a pretty big mistake. They got to figure out a way, if they really do want to help themselves and overcome the things that they're going to be able to do, they've got to figure out a way to get rid of Zeke or get the 2016, 2017 production out of Zeke. That's like the big thing, and take some burden off of Dak. And then they got to figure out, like, a lot of people are talking about I keep hearing more and more about Kellen Moore, about how he's a real big offensive asset to them. But it's kind of dumb that CeeDee Lamb has 1 carry for 5 yards, and he has 1 catch for 21 yards. And granted, that 1 catch in the fourth quarter was a really big one, but that just doesn't make any sense, how you can't get your number 1 guy a big time catch, or, more than 2 touches for the whole game in a playoff game. It's just like that. that's got to be the number one question of any interview of like, how come CeeDee Lamb didn't get the ball? What were you doing? What was the game plan? What did what did the defense take away? That's one thing I'm learning is that there's got to be some kind of layer or wrinkle that Dak and the offense is seeing that is leading to CeeDee Lamb not getting the ball. But I want to know what were you guys seeing? Why did he not get the ball? Were they running some coverage? Was there something? Because you can't just hand it to him, but there's got to be a way to do it. Am I making any sense? Am I just an incoherent
you
fanboy?
Definitely are. I did not play football growing up. So I mean, I played flag football. So
yeah,
great job. Flag football, YMCA, doing great. When I look through like stats to kind of put everything in context to try to learn more about what happened in the game and put it more in my mindset of like, how can I explain it to myself? It's targets. So Dalton Schultz had 8 targets. Amari Cooper had 10 targets. Cedric Wilson had 10 targets. CeeDee Lamb had 5. And then CJ Goodwin had 1. Pollard had 2. And I can keep Elliott had 4. So when I'm going through all of this, the reason why is that, okay, CeeDee Lamb having 5 targets would mean to me, not as a football player, but as a fan of the game, that basically Lamb had maybe the Niners' best corner on him the whole game because he's targeted 5 times, but it's 1 catch for 21 yards, right? Whereas Cooper has 6 receptions for 10 targets, so still the same where he has 4 incompletions, and of course CeeDee Lamb had 4 incompletions, but the big difference here is that Cooper had 4 more receptions than or 5 more, excuse me. So I look at it from a perspective of, okay, listen, the Niners offensive coordinator, I know it's not Kyle Shanahan. I know it's not Kyle Shanahan because he's the head coach and he's known as an offensive guru, but they got their best player the ball when they needed to. Elijah Mitchell carried the ball for 27 times for 96 yards, but Deebo Samuel, who's a all-pro guy, he touched the ball a total of 13 times in the game for about 100 yards. I mean, 3 receptions, 38 yards, and then 10 carries, 72 yards. So if CeeDee Lamb's getting bottled up, Kellen Moore's got to figure out a way to get him the ball. CeeDee Lamb comes over and he does an Odell Beckham Jr. deal where he's throwing the ball or whatever across the field. I mean, maybe he can't do that. I'm not trying to put that in there without any other context. I'm just going through okay, so why in the world is this team built around offense, and we have all these offensive superstars and all these offensive names where the Cowboys are scoring 56 points against the Eagles, which have an okay defense. They're not I mean, it's an NFL defense. I don't, I mean, we're talking about a Bills team that could have put up 50 against the Patriots, but only put up 6 against the Jaguars. So anything's possible, right?
Right.
Great. Different whole context, all type of stuff. I'm sure COVID has some guys in, some guys out when I'm saying that, but still, it's the jerseys that those guys are wearing did that. And Dallas only scoring 17 against what is a good defense with the Niners is still a weird deal to me overall. I think it speaks onto the penalty aspect. I think it speaks onto the sack aspect. But I really do think it comes down to how can Dallas not have better offensive plays? Just better offensive. Like if Kellen Moore really is an offensive guru and teams want to hire him away, if I'm Dallas, I'm like, go for it. Because we scored 17 points in our playoff game. Well, like, I'm not that mad, I guess.
We're also, one thing we haven't even talked about was the 49ers, they have a Bosa on the team, right? They have a really good defensive end, and he went out in like the first quarter, and they lost their best linebacker in the third quarter, didn't they?
Yeah.
So it's like how you're missing, they're like the 49ers don't really have like a name, like a household name defensive or offensive player. I think that they're just so schematically sound and so organizationally sound. Well, maybe not organizationally sound because they've got some weird organization, but like the schematics, the plan behind the team is so sound that Dallas, with the more name recognizable players, should be able to go out and you would think compete or be put, and I guess, I think part of it could be that is it part of Dallas's problem that they're leaning too much on that name recognition? Are they not doing enough to get the players in the right position? Because honestly, I forgot until CeeDee Lamb made that catch that CeeDee Lamb was on the team. I was like, oh yeah, he played for OU and destroyed OSU in a couple games. So that guy was amazing. But I don't know. I mean, has CeeDee Lamb had much of an NFL career so far? I'm clicking on him right now.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's put up
Oh,
stats. I mean,
1,000 yards this season.
yeah. He's a big name dude who's on a rookie contract again. So coming back to how this is not the college football world where we have USC, for example, as a huge brand name and a team that has not had any success on the field. A team that's losing by like 60 to UCLA, who is not a huge brand name in college football, at least right now. So there's a lot more stuff that goes into it because you have the salary cap, you have so much players or whatever. But for a Dallas team that didn't have Dak last year, he got injured pretty early on, and basically has like a bunch of offensive superstars. Michael Gallup, household name. CeeDee Lamb, household name. Mark Cooper, household name. Ezekiel Elliott, Dak
Household name.
Prescott. It's just okay. All right. So do they also need a tight end? And I would say they couldn't afford one. Right. That would be my comeback.
Yeah.
It's like you can only allocate the resources so much. So when I'm trying to think of what Dallas goes from here, and this is basically my question to you, it's got to be defensively, because at this point, Dan Quinn, great defensive coordinator, put together one heck of a great defense this year for Dallas out of DeMarcus Lawrence and Trayvon Diggs, who coming into the season, no one knew Trayvon Diggs' name. If someone wants to rebuttal that, you must be a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. Props to you. But my question to you is what would you do if you're Dallas? What would you do from here?
I mean, I think if I'm there whispering to Jerry Jones, it's got to start by resetting the coaching staff. And it's too late, but I mean, you had right there in the backyard, freaking Lincoln Riley, and that no, he's not defensive minded, but he comes in and gets to play with a top 10 quarterback, Dak Prescott, top 15 at the very least. Like a lot of teams would probably be killing for Dak Prescott on their team right now. You can figure out ways to get Ezekiel Elliott in space. And granted, Lincoln Riley did not have the same offensive success the last 3 years at OU that he had the first couple of years. But I don't understand how whenever they fired Jason Garrett, how that was not the first call, was just to Lincoln Riley of, hey, do you want to become the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? We will pay you, name your price. Like, I don't understand how that doesn't happen. That's just one thing.
There are rumors that did happen.
Oh,
really? Basically Riley knew enough about the Jones family that he knew it wouldn't be his team, right?
Okay.
So let me ask you this from the coaching aspect, right? So that's what we've been going towards or targeting. If you're Dallas, let's say tomorrow, you can't have Andy Reid, Bill Belichick. You can't have those two head coaches, right? You can have any other head coach in the NFL tomorrow. Who's currently a head coach on any team. Who are you getting? Right? Like, you can't have the two guys who have been, playing against each other in the Super Bowl or whatever. I mean, you can't have Bruce Arians either. I'll throw that name in as well. Just because they played in the Super Bowl against each other last year, and Belichick's been there recently. Yeah, so those top three guys you can't have, but you can have any other head coach in the NFL.
I mean, it might go. I mean, so the first thing that came to mind was Brian Flores, because he's actually available right now. There is the weird rumors about he was not getting along with Tua. They had the really hard start at the beginning of the year, and then they won 7 in a row. And you can go in and dig in those numbers, but a win's a win. In the NFL, it's a win. Like, what else? I mean, they can only play with who's in front of them. But 7 wins with Tua, however you say his name, who by all accounts is still we don't know what he is. But still, you got 7 wins in the NFL in a row. That should mean something. I mean, and everybody was really liking where he was going. Imagine what he could do with actual resources, because I don't know how big of a fan base or how many resources the Miami Dolphins have, but surely Dallas can outdo all of that. That would be the first name that comes to mind. Somebody else that might come to mind would be Mike Tomlin. I mean, the guy has made the playoffs for the last 15 years. It was some stupid stat like that. And the team is always competitive. And maybe if they don't have a corpse playing quarterback this year, they might be good enough to be still playing right now and still alive in that. So there's 2 ideas that I have. Who do you think of, Calvin?
So when I think of this question is basically, no one was going to hire Cliff Kingsbury. No one besides the Cardinals, right? So I'm kind of getting at that point of like I go through the head coaches who are currently on, on playoff teams. So Matt LaFleur for the
Mhm.
Packers is one. Tomlin is another one. I think Tomlin is a great head coach. Someone could tell me that he's a great offensive or defensive mind, and I would not be able to tell you which one it is, just to be honest.
Right.
So I think it's defensive, but I'm not honestly exactly sure. So when I'm thinking about it, but Matt LaFleur for the Packers, Cliff Kingsbury, Sean McVay. I think McVay with the Rams would be
McVay would be
incredible.
great. Yes.
I could talk about Brandon Staley Chargers, but they didn't make the playoffs. So there's other it is what it is. There's plenty of other NFL head coaches that I go, oh, okay, I take that guy, right? Sean McDermott for the Bills, take him,
Mhm.
right? I just don't. I always like to play this like retrospective game with you or whoever, because at the time that the Cowboys hired McCarthy, I was like, what in the world? He did no one see that the Packers let him go and the Packers were suddenly better? Did no one figure
Yeah.
this out? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, maybe it's time to give a different guy a shot. Maybe it is a time to give a Brian Flores type of guy a shot. But I also know it's Dallas. That's not necessarily the MO. The MO is to hire somebody who's been around and, at
Right.
least for my lifetime. I could, Jimmy Johnson, I don't remember. I wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
He was an Oklahoma State head coach, and then he was the Dallas Cowboys head coach. And there was, I think, a couple different teams in between. So I go through it in a different perspective because I like to ask that question, because it's always like okay, well, what would you have done differently if you were the GM? Because if you and I today wrote down, and this is just for example, the top 25 college football teams before the season,
Mhm.
and we had to keep that list updated every single week, we eventually would run out. We would be like, and we'd forget somebody. We would. It just would
Yeah.
happen, right? So when I'm going into the perspective of, okay, who would we hire as head coach? We'd forget somebody. We would. I mean, we're
Mhm.
just, it's not what we do every single day of our lives, and no one's asking us to do it. We just do it for fun, right?
Yeah.
So I would also, I'd take a hard look at the Bengals head coach, because he's had, it seems like, really good success really quickly, really early. But then again, he's also had a really good quarterback in Joe
Yeah.
Burrow. I mean, first
Right.
overall pick, Zach Taylor is the guy's name. So I don't think Zach Taylor's coming to be a Cowboys head coach.
No.
I don't think any of these guys that I'm throwing out name wise are going to be coming to Dallas.
There's a 0% chance Mike Tomlin leaves the Steelers.
Yeah.
He's retiring the
Somebody,
Steelers head coach.
somebody threw out like, would he be a USC head coach? And he was like, y'all serious? Like,
Yeah.
type of deal, right? He's in the NFL. He's in a great spot. I mean, who knows what they do at quarterback next year? I think your fingers and my fingers are both crossed so that they give Mason Rudolph his own real shot starting quarterback going into the season, but probably both know that won't happen. I think he's had
He's had
probably
plenty.
he's had chances. He's had chances.
They have probably forced trying to make him the starting quarterback, and he just has not delivered for whatever reason. Who knows why?
I think he's been playing the wrong offensive scheme, but what do I know? I'm having fun talking about football on a Wednesday. So that took me way too long to figure out what day it was. But still, I think about it from that perspective. I don't think Brian Flores is coming to coach the Cowboys. I don't think Jerry Jones would hire him. Not because of anything necessarily, but besides his lack of success in the NFL already. I think it's much more likely, if anything, that the Cowboys would let go of McCarthy and promote Kellen Moore or Dan Quinn at this point.
Yeah,
I think that's much more likely if next season ends badly. But I do want to go through the Dallas schedule from this past season to kind of, as we, kind of cap this one off here, right? So grew up huge Dallas Cowboys fan. I remember the Tony Romo unfortunate, couldn't hold the field goal, type of deal. I unfortunately remember the loss in the playoffs against the Packers when Dez caught it, because he caught it.
Yeah, he caught it. I watched that game too.
Right. So a bunch of other things. But I look for, okay, so who did Dallas lose to this season? Okay. Buccaneers, playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Next game that they lose, Broncos, not a playoff team. But then after that, so then I'm just going to count playoff teams here on my hand. But Chiefs, playoffs. Raiders,
Playoffs.
Cardinals playoffs. So they lost 4 out of their 5 losses are to playoff teams. And then 1, 2, 3. 9 of their 12 wins are against teams that did not play in the playoffs. So their wins against playoff teams are actually, and that might be 10. I think it's 10. The wins that they had against teams that did make the playoffs is Patriots,
Los
and
Angeles.
Eagles twice. That's it.
Yeah, you're
They
right.
didn't beat another team that made the playoffs. So, and both those teams are out. So,
Oh, hang on. They did beat Los Angeles in week 2.
Chargers?
The Chargers. Though I was thinking Rams. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
Even the symbol is so close to a ram's horn. Like,
nope.
You got to do some rebranding.
Nope.
There in San Diego.
Nope. Nope. Rams can work on that. The Rams changed their colors to be more like the Chargers colors, if anyone's curious. But look it up. They used to be navy and gold. Now they are not bright blue, but they're getting closer to it. So I would just say this Dallas team was really, really good. I'm not going to discredit this season either, but I will say the Giants will figure it out at some point. It will not be in a year. It will not be in 2 years, but it could be in 3. They could figure it out. Washington, they'll figure it out. They have an whole rebranding. They have Ron Rivera as the head coach, who's, I believe, a good head coach in the NFL. Who's, I mean, he's definitely stood strong in his fundamentals, and he's taken a team to the Super Bowl in the Carolina Panthers before. And then you got Philadelphia, who, regardless of how how many highlighters their head coach has on his visor, they're going to be good. They'll figure it out. They have 3 first-round draft picks. So Dallas needs to kind of get with it. So this is the time.
Dallas could wake up in like March, and all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson is the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, that's a very real possibility. Whenever the trade embargo or trade deadline is for the NFL, whenever they can start, like maybe the draft in April or whatever, like they wake up and all of a sudden they have a legitimate top 5 quarterback playing for them. And that team's just a whole different team because quarterback's the most important position. So
it is. And also there could be just a whole other world where Philadelphia just says, screw it. Let's have Jalen Hurts go for another year with 3 first-round draft picks around him. And then they draft a different quarterback next year where they have the rookie scale for the quarterback, just like they do right now with Hurts. But they also, not going to bottom out, but they draft a different quarterback. They use some of the draft capital or whatever they move up. I mean, Philadelphia is going to be around. Philadelphia has more recently won a Super Bowl than Dallas, of course. We know that. But they have less Super Bowl wins overall. This is such a great name brand team that everyone roots for or watches all type of stuff. You hit me up, hey, would you want to do a Dallas Cowboys podcast? And I was like, what else do you want to talk about? And you're like, it could just be Dallas. And I was like, let's do it, because the amount of people who will watch, tune in, and listen and hear whatever a Dallas Cowboys segment, podcast, whatever, is more than the rest of the NFL. I mean, any other team. It really is. Every single time I've ever heard of, well, you know what? And you probably heard this segment on the Marcelo podcast as well, too, of, well, you know what? They could talk about the Cowboys, and everyone gets tired about talking about the Cowboys, but do you really want me to talk for 5 to 10 minutes about the Bills?
Yeah.
Well, and they're a playoff team, and they're doing extremely well. I could have said the slapstick comedy routine of the Giants or or Washington or the Jaguars or whatever, right? Could have used that, or the Lions. But at the end of the day, that's an easy, I'd rather you talk about the Cowboys. I'm saying, would you rather a whole entire podcast be devoted to the Dallas Cowboys and how to fix them and how to make them better? Or would you rather it be about the Texans or the Cardinals? Right?
Yeah, nobody cares.
It's just not the same at all. And that's the exact same reason why the Cardinals will go out there on a limb and they'll go, okay, let's see here. Do we want to hire this guy, Cliff Kingsbury? What has he done recently? He had Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, but he never won the Big 12, never got to the Big 12 championship, never really knocked off anybody besides some upsets, right? Never was in control where they were like the team. Then he gets fired from Tech. Then he goes to be the USC offensive coordinator for a college team, and they go, let's go get him. Because they want to pair him up with Kyler Murray, which is great. But Dallas isn't doing that. Dallas isn't going out and doing something like that. That seems crazy in the moment, and like, how's this going to work out? And you know what? Kyler Murray had a horrible game on Monday night against what seems like a really good Rams defense. So I don't know how we'll put that one in context in like a year or two from now. Kyler Murray still is a very young quarterback in the league. So there's a bunch more to explain about that. But Dallas isn't going to go do that. And the other options Dallas would have is like Sean McDermott before he got hired by the Bills. And Sean McVay before he gets hired by the Rams. But then again, McVay's not even, I don't think he's even 40 right now. He could be, but he's, you know what I mean? Dallas is just going to hire more of an institutionalized guy coming to run the team who also is understanding of what he's walking into as the Dallas team. So I think at the end of the day, both of our solutions are Jerry Jones moves into way more of he's only the owner. He's no longer the owner / GM.
Right.
And Dallas is able to operate seemingly. But I think you and I both know that Jerry Jones, knock on wood, never wishing death on anyone. But as long as he's the owner of the team, it's just not been a great track record of the past 20 years now, since the year 2000 or 2001 or 2002, whatever you want to start from, of Dallas having success. It just hasn't. The past 20 years, you figure out all the resources ever imaginable, that you can have under the cap space of attracting free agents to come here, sign for less money, or do whatever, and put that star in your helmet, LeBron James on the sideline, whatever it may be, and still it's just not going to wins at the end of the day, right?
Well, I mean, it's kind of weird. Do you think it maybe it's like the same problem that Texas is having? Is you hear about all the boosters, they want to be in control of the team, not necessarily and hire someone who will listen to them and stuff. It's the same thing with Dallas, I guess. And it's just kind of, I think it's kind of sad that, this team that has all of the money, all the resources in the world can't win a playoff game. Like, just like, well, I guess they won as recently as, what'd you say, 2018?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I shouldn't be as harsh as it is, but like, I feel like
before then it's a while.
Like it just kind of feels sad and pathetic that a team like the Dallas Cowboys should be in the playoffs guaranteed almost every year, except for years that like their quarterback retired the year before. So, all right. So I've got one last trivia-ish question.
Okay, let's bring it back to the Slim Basketball Podcast, which is how we originally met. I have a trivia question for you. Dallas Cowboys established in 1960, same year as the Chargers. Just a heads up, okay, in case anyone's curious. But it's not the trivia question. How many head coaches have the Dallas Cowboys had since the team? I mean, how many have they had overall?
Gosh, so in my lifetime that I can remember, so it was Mike McCarthy, and then it was Jason Garrett, and then before Jason Garrett, it was Wade Phillips.
Doing great.
And then he only got it for like a year because they went 13-3 whenever he was the interim head coach, and then they immediately went 3-13 the next year, and so they fired him. So it was Wade Phillips. I want to say there's probably at least one or two before that. Tom Landry. I'm gonna say 10 since 1960.
Ooh. 9 is the right answer. You're so close. So in order, real quick here, just in case anyone was curious, Tom Landry was the coach of the Dallas Cowboys for 28 years.
Really?
He coached 418 games. I mean, he's inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame 2 years after he retires. So, wow, he's speaking pretty good. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion as a head coach, of course. But going from that, Jimmy Johnson then succeeded him and also won 2 Super Bowls and was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame 2 years ago. Granted, Johnson coached total for 5 years with the Cowboys, won him 2 Super Bowls, and there's a whole entire documentary, I'm sure, on YouTube you could look up to learn more information of why he was only head coach for 5 years. But after that, it's Barry Switzer who wins one championship for the Cowboys. And then since then, and won the Super Bowl championship, of course. Then after Barry Switzer, Chan Gailey for 2 years, Dave Campo for 3, Bill Parcells for 4, Wade Phillips for 4, Jason Garrett for 10, And this hasn't been updated fully because Mike McCarthy has now been the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys for 2 full seasons, but it says 1 year. In
Jason Garrett was
2020.
there for 10 years.
2010 to 2019. Yeah.
Wow.
He still didn't even coach half as many games, of course, as Tom Landry, because 10 and 28, you can figure the math there. But still, we're talking about Jason Garrett having 3 NFC East championships in 2014, 2016, 2018, 3 playoff berths, and 1 AP Coach of the Year award in 2016 when Cowboys had a rookie quarterback and rookie running back starting. So, kind of interesting there.
Wow. I mean, and that's really actually like 9 head coaches for what is that, 60 years? That's a pretty. I mean, for someone who I like stability in a franchise and stuff, that kind of speaks to stability. So, Jerry, how long has Jerry Jones been the owner? Is that an easily, quickly found thing?
Yeah, I could. I might ask you to look up that one just because I was going to instead look up. So just in comparison here, do you want to guess how many head coaches the Los Angeles/San Diego Chargers have had?
Okay, so
They
Sean
had
McVay's
9
been
for the Cowboys.
right.
Chargers, just guess how many?
So in my lifetime, I can remember. So Sean McVay, and then it was
That's a Rams. Sean McVay's the
oh
Rams.
I'm sorry, you said the Chargers. I'm all over the place. I'm gonna go.
They're both founded the same year. That's why I'm bringing this up.
23 different head coaches.
17.
17.
You're not. I mean, in comparison, you're not that far off.
So that's how many head coaches the Cleveland Browns have had in the last 5 years, right?
17. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an interesting thing to bring up as a comparison tool because you talk about 2 teams who have vastly different levels of success in the postseason. Right.
Okay. Right. Jerry Jones has been the head coach or has been the general manager and owner since 1989.
Ooh, so is that 3 Super Bowls?
3 Super Bowls in his first 7 years of ownership.
That's pretty darn incredible. I don't know what happened after that, but that's pretty darn incredible.
I mean, how could you blame him for wanting to still be the manager because he had a lot of success early on. So,
I don't blame him, to be honest. I don't. I do respect the crap out of Jerry Jones for trying to stick with it, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
I watched Hard Knocks. But the Dallas Cowboys had Hard Knocks before the season started, and I was going, "Oh man, Jerry looks a little bit older than I remember."
Yeah,
79.
Ooh.
So I mean, it's just one of those things. The photos of him in 2017 that are on his Wikipedia page make him look much younger, but it just is what it is. So I don't know. There's so many more things and avenues we could go down here. So instead, I'll just ask you this: do the Thunder make the play-in game? That's totally switching topics out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Do the Oklahoma State Thunder make the NBA top 5 picks in the lottery, or do they make the play-in game if you had to bet, like one of the play-in games?
Hang on,
Which do you think?
Can I look up what their record is right now?
I was going to tell you. But you can definitely look it up if you find it faster than I do. But I can tell you right now, yeah, they are 14-29.
14-29. I think they're definitely top 5 lottery pick right now.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to. Also, currently a lottery team here and looking up for Oklahoma City are the LA Clippers.
Yes, I love it. But I mean, were you surprised? Like, we can end with this, but like, were you surprised that Giddey has shown the flashes he has, or were you like, this is a bad pick? Like, what were your thoughts on Giddey?
I'm surprised he's able to shoot as well as he can this early. I didn't know a lot about him going in the draft. When Thunder drafted him, I was like, oh, okay. Seems like a little bit of reach, but why not? It didn't seem like there was just a guy right behind him that would have been the surefire pick. Now, we all can say the woulda, coulda, shoulda, but I think Giddey's been a really good pick so far. I'm interested to see how he messes with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because I think SGA and him have to be like the dynamic duo, and you weirdly end up trading for like the guy, like the dude for the team that you put around this nucleus, and play it 3 more years and you see what happens. Because I think that's the next step here for the Thunder.
Well, I mean, so interesting. You just said that you didn't think he could shoot as well as he did. He's shooting 28.9% right now from 3. So has he been shooting better lately? And that's just that number hasn't come up yet. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
all of the Thunder highlights I see are Josh Giddey's NBA Western Conference Player of the Month or week or whatever too. So maybe I'm getting more of that. But I think Josh Giddey passed somebody in 3-point percentage on the team or whatever. I forget exactly, but basically, let me see here if I can figure it out kind of quickly. Yeah, so Giddey, shout out, currently 0 of 4 from 3 in tonight's game. So not help me there, but he was 2 of 4 against the Mavericks and 1 of 2 against the Cavs. And then he was 3 of 11 against the Nets, even in a win, which is odd. But yeah, he's 28%, almost 29. But he shot the 3 better. His shot looks better than I thought it would. Seeing the highlights of him, I was like, oh, not good. But now
I'm just super intrigued by like his otherworldly ability for passing. Just like he is so cerebral for a player as young as he is, who's like barely older than your brother.
That's true. Yeah, he's 19. He's 2 years older than Jackson. So shout out there. But Colton, thank you so much for joining me here.
Yeah, no problem. I loved it, Calvin. Loved just talking with you.
Have to get another one here going before too long. But thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, please follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more. And Colton, I'll catch you soon. Catch the rest of you guys soon as well.
See you later, Calvin.